Everyone in the church adored Mommy Blessing, the beautiful and soft-spoken wife of Pastor Ezekiel, the general overseer of Mountain of Revival Church. She carried herself with grace and humility, her long white gown sweeping across the altar floor as she led prayers every Sunday. To everyone, she was the definition of holiness, the perfect example of what a godly woman should be. But deep inside, Mommy Blessing was drowning in shame. Her husband had stopped looking at her. He no longer touched her, no longer smiled the way he used to. She had prayed, fasted, and even anointed herself, but still, Pastor Ezekiel's eyes always followed the curvy, younger women in the choir. One evening, after another cold and silent dinner, steaming jollof rice and fried plantain, he ate in silence. His eyes stayed on his phone, never on her face. Blessing forced a smile, hiding her hurt behind the clatter of cutlery. Mommy Blessing sat in front of her mirror, staring at her reflection. Her once slim figure now looked older and tired, her wrapper tied loosely around her waist, her stomach bulging slightly. A sigh escaped her lips. "God, what happened to me?" she whispered under her breath. Later that night, she stood before her cracked mirror, the dim bulb flickering overhead. Her fingers traced the folds of her stomach, her eyes red with tears. She remembered when Ezekiel used to call her "my fine wife." Now, he only called her Mommy Blessing, as though her beauty had expired with motherhood. The memory of her husband's harsh words echoed in her head. "You've let yourself go, Blessing." That night, she cried herself to sleep. The phone buzzed on her table, lighting up with Instagram posts, curvy young women flaunting their perfect shapes, their confidence intoxicating. She scrolled slowly, envy eating her up. Her heart pounded as an advert appeared. "Transform your body. BBL done right in Istanbul. Love yourself again, BBL in Turkey." Her heart pounded. The thought was wild, sinful even. But something inside her snapped. He stared at it, trembling. For a moment, she laughed bitterly. A pastor's wife thinking of surgery. Blasphemy. But the more she stared, the more she imagined the woman in that picture, confident, adored, unstoppable. A tear slipped down her cheek. "Maybe God will understand," she murmured. Days later, when Pastor Ezekiel left for a 3-day crusade, Blessing opened her Bible and slipped folded naira notes between its pages. Her hands shook. She wasn't sure if she was sinning or saving herself. At night, she knelt on the cold floor, surrounded by candles, whispering prayers through her sobs. "Father, forgive me. I just want to feel alive again." 3 months later, Mommy Blessing told her husband she had been invited to a women's revival retreat in Abuja. She packed her bags with her Bible, prayer shawl, and a brand new waist trainer. That morning, the sun rose slowly over Lagos as she rolled her small suitcase across Murtala Muhammad Airport. She wore a simple Ankara gown, her scarf wrapped tight to hide her tears. At the entrance, a giant billboard caught her eye, a curvy woman smiling above bold letters that read, "Perfect Body Clinic, Istanbul." Blessing froze, her heart pounding in her chest. Was this a sign from God, or from her own desperate heart? She turned away, whispering, "I'll be back before anyone knows." But as she boarded the plane, staring out the window at the Lagos skyline fading beneath her, something inside her shifted. She wasn't sure if she was flying toward freedom, or toward the biggest mistake of her life. Her hands shook the entire journey, guilt burning in her chest. "What if I die? What if God punishes me for this?" she whispered, clutching her cross necklace. Yet, another voice in her head whispered, "He already doesn't love you. What do you have to lose?" When she arrived at the clinic, the nurse smiled. "Don't worry, ma'am, by tomorrow you will wake up a new woman." The surgery was painful, the recovery was. She spent nights crying, body wrapped in bandages, praying for forgiveness. But when she finally looked in the mirror after weeks of healing, she gasped. Her reflection was breathtaking. Her curves were round, full, and perfect. She didn't even look like a pastor's wife anymore. She looked like one of those glamorous social media queens she used to preach against. Returning to Nigeria, she walked through the airport unnoticed. But when she arrived at church that Sunday, the congregation froze. Mommy Blessing's transformation was impossible to ignore. Even her husband was speechless. The whispers began, "She looks younger, finer, different." Mommy Blessing smiled, pretending nothing had changed. But deep down, she knew she had crossed a line she could never return from. Within weeks, the internet was flooded with pictures of her. People posted captions like, "Pastor's wife slays in new look." The church's attendance doubled. Women wanted to look like her, men couldn't stop staring. Pastor Ezekiel, once cold and distant, suddenly became affectionate again. He began praising her during sermons. "My wife is a blessing indeed." But while everyone celebrated, Mommy Blessing felt uneasy. Every night she heard faint whispers when she stood before her mirror, like a woman's voice crying softly. Sometimes she'd wake up to find bruises on her hips, shaped like fingerprints. She ignored it, convincing herself it was just her imagination or post-surgery pain. But one night, while she prayed alone in the living room, the lights flickered and a shadow moved behind her. A whisper filled the air, "Give it back." She screamed and ran to her room. When she told Pastor Ezekiel, he brushed it off, saying she needed rest. But Mommy Blessing couldn't sleep. The mirror in her room began to terrify her. Every time she looked, she saw flashes of another woman, a stranger, with her exact body, crying blood. A month later, Mommy Blessing received a message from an unknown number. "How's your new body, Mrs. Ezekiel?" She froze. No one in Nigeria was supposed to know. The sender introduced himself as Dr. Ahmed, the man who had overseen her surgery. He claimed he had found something strange during the procedure, an unregistered implant. He said the woman whose tissue was used in her surgery had died mysteriously. "There's something inside you that doesn't belong to you," the message ended. Panic took over. Mommy Blessing tried to ignore it, but the nightmares worsened. In her dreams, a young woman begged her to return what was stolen. Her health began to fail, sharp pains, dizziness, strange cravings. She couldn't pray anymore. The moment she opened her Bible, her hands trembled. Even Pastor Ezekiel started avoiding her again, whispering to the elders that his wife was behaving strangely. One evening, Mommy Blessing received a package at the church gate. Inside was a flash drive and a note, "Play this before it's too late." She locked herself in the church office and pressed play. The video showed her lying on the operating table, surrounded by doctors. Then, a woman's shadow appeared over her body. A dead woman. Her face was pale, her eyes wide open, the same woman she'd been seeing in the mirror. That night, Mommy Blessing couldn't breathe. The video replayed in her mind over and over again. Who was that woman? What did Dr. Ahmed mean by, "Something inside you doesn't belong to you"? Her heart pounded like a drum as she locked her phone away. The next morning, she called the clinic in Turkey. But the line had been disconnected. Fear ate through her like fire. She began to suspect she had been used for something darker than she understood. Her husband, Pastor Ezekiel, noticed her strange behavior. "Blessing, you look pale. What's wrong with you?" he asked one morning. She wanted to tell him everything, but something inside her whispered, "He will never forgive you." So she smiled and said she was fasting. But the lies were becoming heavy. Church members had started gossiping, "Mommy Blessing no dey smile again oh. She just dey talk to herself." Even Sister Mary, her best friend, began to avoid her. Mommy Blessing could feel the walls closing in. Late one evening, as she was about to delete the strange video from her phone, another message came in, "Tell your husband the truth before I do." Her blood ran cold. Someone knew. Someone was watching her. 3 days later, a man approached her car after choir practice. He was tall, dark, and wore sunglasses even at night. "Madam, I know wetin you do," he whispered. You think say nobody go find out? You think say your beauty not free? He handed her an envelope and walked away. Inside were printed photos from her surgery in Turkey, every detail captured. Her legs gave way. She almost fainted. The letter inside said, 10 million naira, or your husband and the church will see everything. Mommy Blessing's world crashed. She didn't even have a fraction of that money. Desperate, she began secretly selling her jewelry, withdrawing from church accounts, lying that it was for charity. But the blackmailer kept demanding more. Soon, Pastor Ezekiel noticed money missing from the church account. Blessing, what are you doing with these funds? He asked. She froze, unable to answer. Are you stealing from God's house? He thundered. Tears streamed down her face as she begged, please, I'll explain later. But he walked away in disgust. The same night, she received a final message, time up. Sunday service, everyone will know who the real Mommy Blessing is. Sunday came like a nightmare. The church was packed, cameras flashing, choir singing. Mommy Blessing stood on the altar, her heart trembling. As Pastor Ezekiel began to preach, the church screen behind him suddenly flickered. The congregation gasped as a video began to play, the surgery video. Her own body on the screen, the foreign doctors, the transformation, everything. Screams filled the church. Some fainted. Others shouted, abomination. Pastor Ezekiel froze, staring at his wife in disbelief. Blessing. What is this? He yelled. She tried to explain, but no one listened. Ushers dragged her out of the church as people hurled insults and curses. Outside, reporters waited, it was already on social media. Within hours, the video went viral nationwide. The Holy Woman of God exposed. That night, Pastor Ezekiel locked himself in his office and refused to come home. Alone and humiliated, Mommy Blessing knelt in her room, sobbing. Lord, I only wanted to be loved, she whispered. Why did this happen to me? Within days, the church board suspended Pastor Ezekiel. The ministry lost sponsors, members left, and the once-honored couple became a laughingstock. Mommy Blessing tried to reach her husband, but he refused to see her. He told the elders, she brought shame upon my name. Let her face the world she wanted to impress. With nowhere to go, Mommy Blessing moved into a small guest house on the outskirts of town. Every night, she scrolled through hateful comments online, fake woman, plastic holiness, shame of the church. She stopped eating. Her health began to fail. But amidst her misery, she made one last decision, she would find out who ruined her life. She contacted the Turkish embassy, pretending to follow up on her surgery file. After days of pleading, they finally sent her the list of names involved in her procedure. And that was when she saw it, Dr. Hamid's assistant's name. Her eyes widened. The name was Mr. Chuka Ezekiel, her husband's brother. Shock tore through her like lightning. Chuka had been her husband's trusted right hand, always around the church, managing funds, handling travel documents. Could he have been the blackmailer? She confronted him quietly, calling him to meet at a cafe. He smiled when he saw her. I was wondering when you'd find out, he said calmly. Your husband sent me to follow you to Turkey. He paid for the surgery. Mommy Blessing's mouth fell open. What? Yes, he continued. He wanted to test your loyalty. To see if you'd do something so foolish. But when you did, he planned to use it against you later. I just helped him speed things up and make some money along the way. He sipped his coffee like nothing mattered. You both destroyed yourselves, not me. She walked out shaking, broken beyond words. The man she loved, the man she sinned for, had set her up. It was never about beauty. It was about power, pride, and control. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, he was never God's servant. He was my punishment. 2 weeks later, A video appeared on YouTube titled, "My Truth, the Pastor's Wife with a Secret Body." It was Mommy Blessing, sitting alone in a simple room, without makeup or filters. Her voice trembled as she said, "I wanted to be perfect. I wanted love. But I forgot that beauty without peace is nothing. I lost my dignity trying to please a man who didn't deserve me." The video spread faster than the scandal itself. Thousands of women began sharing their stories, crying, forgiving themselves. Even some men admitted how society's pressure destroyed marriages. Mommy Blessing disappeared from public view after that day. No one knew where she went, but some say she opened a small counseling center for women, helping them find confidence without changing their bodies. As for Pastor Ezekiel, his church never recovered. He was last seen preaching in small villages, begging for forgiveness. The story of Mommy Blessing became a lesson whispered across Nigeria: be careful what you sacrifice for love, because not every miracle is from God. If this story touched your heart, don't just scroll away, tell me in the comments. What would you have done if you were Mommy Blessing? Remember, sometimes the real miracle is learning to love yourself the way God made you. Subscribe for more deep, emotional Nigerian stories that open your eyes and touch your soul. This is African Folktales by Irene, where every story teaches, heals, and reveals.